Welcome, dear subscribers and curious listeners of my channel. Today I want to talk about Hagrid, one of the simplest and seemingly good-natured characters in the Harry Potter series. He is big, warm-hearted, loved by everyone, and his loyalty and devotion are beyond question. However, as with many things in the magical world, even in simple characters, there can be a hidden depth. Today, I invite you to explore several interesting fan theories about Hagrid. Enjoy the video. Number 1. Hagrid was the same age as Harry. One of Hagrid's most charming traits is his childlike naivety, which often led him into amusing situations. He threw parties in his hut and displayed behavior that could be attributed to his giant heritage, as giants are known for their lack of wit. However, Hagrid repeatedly demonstrated his intelligence and maturity. One theory suggests that giants mature more slowly than humans, and mentally, Hagrid was the same age as Harry, Ron, and Hermione. This could explain his childish innocence and why, despite his age, he acted like a teenager. Number 2. Voldemort was afraid of Hagrid. In the Chamber of Secrets, we learn that Voldemort attended school with Hagrid. The young Dark Lord framed Hagrid, accusing him of a crime and causing his expulsion. However, there's a theory that Voldemort actually feared Hagrid. Being half-giant, it's unclear what magical power Hagrid could have reached with proper training. Voldemort may have decided to eliminate Hagrid in advance, so he wouldn't become a future obstacle. Number 3. Hagrid was a Death Eater. Although Hagrid is known for his kindness, there's a theory suggesting that he might have been on Voldemort's side. According to this theory, Hagrid sabotaged Dumbledore and the Order of the Phoenix from the very beginning, which could explain his behavior at times, such as when he used magic to accidentally help Harry fall into the hands of Voldemort. In The Philosopher's Stone, Hagrid demonstrated confident magical skills which casts doubt on his truly good nature. Number 4. Hagrid's wand wasn't broken. After Hagrid was expelled from school, his wand was broken and he couldn't use it for magic. However, there's a theory suggesting that Hagrid actually kept his wand. Dumbledore, aware of Hagrid's attachment to magic, might have secretly repaired the wand and hidden it in an umbrella. This way, Hagrid could continue to perform magic in certain situations despite his official inability to do so. Number 5. The legend of Harry's scar started with Hagrid. Harry Potter's lightning-shaped scar became his signature mark, known throughout the wizarding world. But how did people find out about the scar if it was only visible to a few people that night? One theory suggests that Hagrid, being the first to see Harry after the incident, quickly spread the information about the scar, which became the beginning of the legend. Number 6. The door to Fluffy's room was weakly protected on purpose. In The Philosopher's Stone, Harry and his friends easily make their way to the Philosopher's Stone. The theory suggests that the weak protection, including the simple door that could be opened with a spell, was deliberately set by Dumbledore. Since Hagrid was the one supposed to visit Fluffy, the protection was designed in such a way that it wouldn't hinder him. Number 7. Hagrid's mother was small. In The Goblet of Fire, it's mentioned that Hagrid is the son of the giantess Fridwulfa and an ordinary wizard, but many fans wonder, how could two such different beings have a child? One theory suggests that Fridwulfa wasn't a full giantess and was significantly smaller than other giants. This could explain why she could have a romantic relationship with a human, and why her children, despite having giants in their lineage, weren't as huge as other giants. This concludes our review of theories about Hagrid. Each one offers a new perspective on this multifaceted character, making him even more interesting and mysterious. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new, interesting theories and content about the Harry Potter world. Number 8. Hagrid secretly protected Harry using magical creatures. Throughout the series, Hagrid surrounds himself and Harry with a variety of magical creatures: dragons, hippogriffs, a three-headed dog, giant spiders, and even thestrals. While it's easy to chalk this up to Hagrid's love for unusual pets, a more intriguing theory suggests that Hagrid wasn't just collecting creatures for the sake of it. Instead, he was intentionally gathering these dangerous beings to protect Harry in moments of need. Each creature served a hidden purpose, and Hagrid may have been planning all along to use them as guardians for the boy who lived. Take Fawkes, for example, the phoenix who saves Harry in the Chamber of Secrets by healing his basilisk venom, or Buckbeak, the hippogriff who plays a key role in rescuing Sirius and Harry from Dementors in The Prisoner of Azkaban. Even Grawp, Hagrid's giant half-brother, helps fend off giants in the Deathly Hallows. It's clear that Hagrid wasn't just collecting these creatures out of fascination. Instead, he may have been carefully preparing an army of magical creatures to protect Harry, ensuring that no matter what danger he faced, there was always something, or someone, ready to help. Number 9. Hagrid can cast magic without a wand. One intriguing fan theory suggests that Hagrid has the ability to perform magic without a wand, though he carefully keeps this secret. Despite being officially expelled from Hogwarts and supposedly never completing his magical education, Hagrid repeatedly demonstrates magical abilities that go beyond what his broken wand should be capable of. In the Philosopher's Stone, when Hagrid and Harry are crossing the stormy sea to reach Diagon Alley, Hagrid effortlessly controls the boat, steering it through powerful waves without any apparent spell. How could he do this if his wand was broken and he was supposedly without magical training? Another example is Hagrid's effortless control over magical creatures like Buckbeak in The Prisoner of Azkaban. When Harry first meets the hippogriff, it's clear that Hagrid possesses an innate connection to the creature, something more than just a teacher's understanding. He commands Buckbeak with ease, showing no fear or hesitation. Could Hagrid be using an advanced form of non-verbal magic, a rare skill that he keeps hidden to avoid attracting attention from the Ministry of Magic? By doing so, he would not only protect himself but also shield Dumbledore from suspicion, ensuring that the Ministry never caught wind of his true abilities. Number 10. Hagrid is the descendant of a famous wizard. Although Hagrid's heritage is largely known, there's a fan theory that suggests his family's origins go much deeper. What if Hagrid was descended from an ancient and famous wizard or witch, one with an extraordinary connection to magic, particularly magic tied to magical creatures? The idea is that Hagrid's deep bond with these creatures, his uncanny understanding and empathy, could be the result of a long line of powerful ancestors who shared this unique affinity for the magical beasts that populate the world. This theory suggests that Hagrid's instincts when it comes to magical creatures are not just a product of his personality, but part of a magical legacy passed down through generations. His remarkable ability to communicate with and care for creatures like Buckbeak and Aragog seems almost otherworldly. Could this connection be tied to a long-lost ancestor who had similar powers? Some fans speculate that Hagrid could be related to none other than Newt Scamander, the famous magizoologist and author of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. This connection would not only explain Hagrid's unparalleled intuition, but also add a layer of magical heritage that links him to one of the most influential wizards of the past. The idea becomes even more intriguing when we consider Hagrid's treatment of creatures that most wizards find dangerous or repellent. Whether it's helping a dragon like Norbert or befriending a giant acromantula like Aragog, Hagrid has an innate understanding of magical creatures that surpasses that of any other character in the series. In the Philosopher's Stone, he introduces Harry to the creatures of the Forbidden Forest with a sense of familiarity, even affection. Could it be that Hagrid's gift for understanding magical creatures is an inherited talent, passed down through generations, linked to a magical legacy he himself may not fully comprehend? Number 11. Hagrid always knew Harry had to die. There's a theory suggesting that Hagrid knew far more than he ever let on, especially when it came to Harry's fate. When he carries Harry's lifeless body through the Forbidden Forest in Deathly Hallows, his grief is palpable. He's consumed by sadness, convinced that Harry has died. But what if deep down Hagrid knew the truth all along? What if he understood that Harry's sacrifice was inevitable, that the boy he cared for so deeply would have to die in order to destroy Voldemort? This theory proposes that Hagrid, being a loyal servant of Dumbledore, had knowledge of the prophecy. He may have known that Harry was marked for death, not by Voldemort's hand, but by his own destiny. In the Deathly Hallows, Hagrid's emotional response to Harry's apparent death isn't just grief over losing a friend, it's the pain of a man who understands the larger truth. "I'll carry him," Hagrid says, determination in his voice as he carries Harry through the forest. His tears are not just for the loss of a beloved student, but for the weight of the secret he's kept. Throughout the series, Hagrid's relationship with Harry is one of deep care, but there's an underlying sadness to it. He watches Harry grow up with the knowledge that the boy must face his ultimate test, a test that will require the greatest sacrifice. In moments when Hagrid looks at Harry, there's a flicker of sorrow in his eyes, as though he's preparing himself for the day when he'll have to say goodbye. His protective nature, his constant support of Harry, could all stem from his understanding of the prophecy and the heartache of knowing what was coming. Perhaps one of the hardest things for Hagrid to carry was the knowledge of Harry's fate. While everyone else around him hoped for a different outcome, Hagrid knew that Harry's survival was never guaranteed. He carried this heavy secret, nurturing Harry with love, knowing that the boy would have to face death as part of his journey to save the world. This theory adds a layer of bittersweet depth to Hagrid's character, showing that his emotional moments were not just reactions to Harry's danger, but a profound understanding of the sacrifice that had to be made. Number 12. Hagrid will become headmaster of Hogwarts in the future. Fans love theories where characters receive the recognition they deserve, and one such theory imagines Hagrid as the future headmaster of Hogwarts. According to this version, after the events of the main series, Hagrid didn't just remain the care of magical creatures professor. Over the years, he matured into an even greater educator and leader, eventually earning the highest position at the school. The idea that he would become headmaster may seem far-fetched to some, but for others, it feels like the perfect ending to Hagrid's story. The theory suggests that after Professor McGonagall steps down, Hagrid is the natural choice to replace her. He becomes the most beloved headmaster in Hogwarts history. While some might argue that Hagrid, with his rough exterior and lack of traditional education, isn't suited for such a role, we must remember Dumbledore's own belief that the most important quality in a headmaster was kindness and the ability to protect the students. Dumbledore always placed more value on a person's heart and courage than their qualifications, and if there was one thing Hagrid had in abundance, it was that Hagrid always put others first, especially the students he cared so deeply for. Take, for example, the way he welcomed Harry, Ron, and Hermione into his world with open arms. When Hagrid first meets Harry, he's not just a teacher or a caretaker, he's a friend. "You're a wizard, Harry," he says, delivering life-changing news with a tenderness that only someone with immense care for others could offer. His ability to show empathy and protect his students, like when he stood up to the likes of Dolores Umbridge, proves that Hagrid has the qualities needed to lead Hogwarts in the future. Hagrid's connection to the school and its students runs deep, from his time as a student to his role as a beloved professor. His knowledge of magical creatures, his fierce loyalty, and his unshakable belief in doing what's right would make him the ideal headmaster in the post-war era. In a world that had been shaken by war and darkness, Hagrid's kindness would be the foundation of a new, brighter future for Hogwarts. He may not have been the obvious choice at first, but perhaps in the end, Hagrid's heart was exactly what the school needed to heal and grow. Number 13, Hagrid secretly controlled the forest and its inhabitants. The Forbidden Forest was always a place of mystery and danger in the Harry Potter series. Filled with terrifying creatures, it seemed to be a lawless land where monsters like Aragog's giant spiders roamed freely, threatening the safety of students. But what if there was more to it than meets the eye? Some fans suggest that Hagrid, with his deep connection to magical creatures, secretly controlled the forest and all its inhabitants. Think about it. Aragog, this giant acromantula, could have easily attacked Hogwarts. Yet, despite his massive size and deadly nature, he never posed a threat to the school. Instead, Hagrid's bond with the giant spider kept him in check. In the Chamber of Secrets, Hagrid even tells Harry, "Aragog's a good creature. He's not dangerous unless you threaten him." This shows that Hagrid's understanding and respect for magical creatures helped maintain peace in the forest, even among the most terrifying of them. Then there are the centaurs, proud and fierce beings who could have easily overrun the school, but they never ventured beyond the forest's boundaries. In The Philosopher's Stone, when Harry and Hermione encounter the centaurs, they are clearly respectful but also wary of the students. However, the centaurs listen to Hagrid, not because they fear him, but because they respect him. Hagrid's unique relationship with these creatures is a subtle form of control, maintaining a delicate balance between the students' safety and the wildness of the forest. Even creatures like the hippogriffs and unicorns, which are known for their fierceness, remain calm and docile under Hagrid's care. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, Hagrid's interaction with Buckbeak, the hippogriff, is a prime example of this. He shows Harry how to approach Buckbeak with respect, and the hippogriff responds in kind. This suggests that Hagrid, through his quiet influence, held sway over the forest's inhabitants, ensuring that they would not harm the students, yet still preserving the forest's wildness and danger. In this way, Hagrid was not just the keeper of magical creatures, he was the secret guardian of the Forbidden Forest itself. Number 14. Hagrid intentionally revealed Fluffy's secret to Quirrell. In The Philosopher's Stone, Hagrid unwittingly reveals the secret to bypassing Fluffy, the three-headed dog, to Professor Quirrell. It's a simple moment, but for those who watch closely, it feels like more than just a careless slip of the tongue. When Hagrid excitedly tells Quirrell, "Just play him a bit of music and he'll go to sleep," he unknowingly gives away the key to accessing the trapdoor that guards the Philosopher's Stone. At first glance, this seems like nothing more than an innocent mistake. But what if this was not an accident at all? Some fans believe Hagrid's slip was deliberate, a part of a bigger plan orchestrated by Dumbledore. After all, Dumbledore knew Hagrid well. The old headmaster was aware that Hagrid was incapable of lying convincingly, his straightforward nature making him an ideal pawn for a carefully crafted strategy. By letting Hagrid accidentally reveal the secret to Quirrell, Dumbledore could ensure that Voldemort's path to the stone would be made clear but ultimately lead to his downfall. In fact, Dumbledore's foresight might have known that Quirrell, under Voldemort's influence, would use the information to try and steal the stone. But this was all part of the trap. Dumbledore, using Hagrid's trustworthiness, manipulated events so that Quirrell and Voldemort would walk right into the waiting snare. By letting them believe they were gaining an advantage, they were unknowingly walking right into Dumbledore's hands. This theory adds layers to Hagrid's role in the story. Instead of being just a clumsy, well-meaning giant, Hagrid becomes a deliberate participant in a high-stakes game of strategy. He was the perfect decoy, his honesty the very thing that made him so valuable. By following Dumbledore's unspoken guidance, Hagrid helped lead Voldemort and Quirrell to their eventual defeat, proving that even the most innocent-seeming actions can have grand consequences. Number 15. Hagrid might be immortal. One of the most captivating fan theories about the Harry Potter universe is the idea that Rubeus Hagrid, the lovable half-giant and keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, might possess immortality, or at the very least a very slow aging process. Fans of the series have speculated that Hagrid's appearance, which seems unchanged over the decades, is not a mere coincidence. Despite being born in the 1920s, Hagrid appears remarkably youthful for someone of his age, which is a baffling anomaly even among magical folk. This theory, if true, would have profound implications not only for Hagrid's role in the wizarding world, but also for his place in the larger narrative of Harry Potter's life. The most compelling argument for this theory lies in Hagrid's giant heritage. As a half-giant, he is part of a species known for their immense physical strength, long lifespan, and slow aging process. In the world of Harry Potter, giants are depicted as towering, ancient creatures, often living for hundreds of years. While the full extent of their lifespans is not explored in detail, it is clear that giants experience time in a vastly different way than humans. Hagrid's giant ancestry could theoretically contribute to his long life, and it is this combination of wizard and giant blood that might give him a unique advantage when it comes to aging. Throughout the books, Hagrid's appearance remains strikingly consistent. He is described as having a wild, untamed beard, a thick mane of hair, and a broad, burly frame. His jovial demeanor and love for magical creatures give him a certain youthful exuberance, but his physical appearance never seems to change. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, when Harry first meets him, Hagrid is already a fully grown adult, yet there is little mention of him aging in subsequent books. Even when Harry sees him again in later years, Hagrid seems unchanged, even though many other characters, such as Harry, Ron, and Hermione, have visibly matured. This consistency in Hagrid's appearance is curious, especially considering the passage of time and the natural aging process that affects everyone else around him. For many fans, the fact that Hagrid has not visibly aged over the course of the series is a key point of evidence in favor of his potential immortality. It's not that Hagrid is ageless in the same way that someone like Voldemort or Dumbledore might appear to be, using dark magic or complex spells to halt their aging process. Instead, it is implied that his half-giant nature might give him an extraordinarily long life. This could explain why he remains so youthful, despite the fact that decades pass between the events of the first and seventh books. While other characters like Professor McGonagall or Flitwick show signs of age, and where Hagrid's robust health and vitality remain a constant, fans have pointed out that Hagrid may simply be one of the rare half-giants who possesses an extraordinarily slow aging process, allowing him to live for centuries without showing significant signs of aging. If we consider the history of the giants in the wizarding world, it's easy to imagine that Hagrid might be one of the few who survived long enough to witness the rise and fall of numerous wizarding generations. Hagrid was born in 1928, and by the time Harry Potter enters Hogwarts in 1991, he is still very much alive, working at the school and carrying out his duties with the same enthusiasm he had when he first arrived. This longevity would make sense if he inherited traits from his giant father, as giants are known to. Live much longer than ordinary humans. His presence in Harry's life over the course of the series is almost like a constant, with Hagrid serving as a protector, mentor, and friend to Harry. His role as a stable figure throughout Harry's tumultuous childhood makes him seem less like an aging teacher and more like a timeless guardian of Hogwarts. In addition to Hagrid's giant heritage, there are other elements of the series that suggest he might be different from regular wizards. For instance, Hagrid has an unusual relationship with magical creatures. His ability to communicate with and understand beasts such as Buckbeak, Aragog, and Fluffy suggests a deep connection to the natural world, one that transcends typical magical abilities. This unique bond with creatures, especially the magical ones, may also contribute to his longevity. Magic in the wizarding world often has unpredictable effects, and it's possible that Hagrid's connection to magical creatures gives him some kind of magical protection, allowing him to live far beyond the typical lifespan of a wizard. The fact that Hagrid's magical abilities are often portrayed as being quite rudimentary is also interesting when considering his potential immortality. While he may not possess the same level of magical prowess as other characters like Dumbledore or Snape, Hagrid's strength lies in his pure-hearted nature and his dedication to protecting the creatures and people he loves. It's possible that these qualities, combined with his half-giant nature, allow him to lead a life that defies the usual limits of aging. His strength and resilience, both physical and emotional, make him a perfect candidate for this fan theory. Despite his somewhat rough exterior, Hagrid's enduring kindness and love for the magical world suggest a deep-rooted connection to something eternal. Number 16. Hagrid was the one who found Tom Riddle's diary. In the world of Harry Potter, there are many unsolved mysteries, one of which revolves around the diary of Tom Riddle. How did it end up in the hands of Lucius Malfoy? The story surrounding this particular artifact has always been shrouded in intrigue, but one fan theory suggests a twist in the tale, a twist that links Hagrid to the diary's dark history. Hagrid, the beloved half-giant keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, has always been a character of duality. On the one hand, he is kind-hearted and fiercely loyal to his friends, yet on the other hand, he has a tragic history. This history, especially his expulsion from Hogwarts in his 3rd year, has been a subject of much speculation among fans. According to the canon, Hagrid was expelled after being falsely accused of opening the Chamber of Secrets, a crime for which he was blamed simply because he was the last person to be seen near the monster. This expulsion, caused by the machinations of Tom Riddle, changed the course of Hagrid's life. Yet what if Hagrid's involvement with the diary of Tom Riddle predates the discovery of the diary by others? What if Hagrid had unknowingly played a key role in its reappearance, ultimately leading to Voldemort's resurrection? The theory begins with Hagrid's life after his expulsion. As a young man, rejected from Hogwarts and forced to return to the magical world with little more than a reputation to ruin, Hagrid likely stumbled across the diary years later while he was working at Hogwarts. He had spent much of his life since his expulsion tending to magical creatures and ensuring the safety of the school grounds. One might imagine that with his gentle nature, Hagrid would never think of harm in keeping such an item. He would, at best, believe it to be a mere artifact of a time long past, nothing more than an old piece of magic from the era of Tom Riddle's reign as a student. After all, the diary was not inherently dangerous to the casual observer. Its power was dormant, sealed by Riddle's own dark magic, which could easily be overlooked by someone like Hagrid, whose knowledge was more attuned to creatures than to the intricacies of dark magical artifacts. Hagrid, being a keeper of keys and grounds, had free access to the restricted parts of Hogwarts, including the hidden corners where many forgotten or hidden artifacts lay. He could have come across the diary while working one day, buried among old things in a dusty cupboard, or hidden deep within a locked chest in a forgotten corner of the castle. As he rummaged through the clutter, perhaps looking for something else entirely, he would have found the leather-bound book with its eerily empty pages. Intrigued, Hagrid may have opened it, not understanding the darkness that lurked within. In the world of magic, the lines between harmless objects and dangerous artifacts often blur. The diary, with its simplistic design and apparent lack of outward magic, might have been a curiosity but not an immediate threat in Hagrid's eyes. It's important to note that the diary had for many years been a dormant object, its power lying within the enchanted ink of Tom Riddle's own words. The diary itself could not operate without a host, someone to interact with its pages. Tom Riddle's magic had, for a time, kept the diary safe and contained within its magical prison. However, it was an object of potential danger, something that could easily slip through the cracks of a well-meaning person's attention. With Hagrid's lack of awareness of its power, it's entirely plausible that he may have been the one to find it and unknowingly allow the diary to resurface. After discovering the diary, Hagrid, in his typically well-meaning way, may have decided to keep it for himself or even show it to a colleague, such as Professor Dumbledore. In his innocence, he would have never imagined that the book was anything more than a harmless relic of a bygone era. But just as easily, Hagrid could have passed the diary on to someone else, perhaps someone who knew more of its dark history. This figure could have been Lucius Malfoy, a man with a long history of involvement in dark magic, and one whose influence within the wizarding world was growing stronger. Malfoy's connection to the diary would make sense, especially considering his eagerness to place it in Ginny Weasley's hands years later, thereby enabling the diary's malevolent power to take root once more. One possibility is that Hagrid, completely unaware of the diary's significance, either left it somewhere accessible to others, or in his generosity gave it away to someone who appeared trustworthy. The idea that the diary was passed on unwittingly fits with Hagrid's character, a kind man who always tries to do the right thing, but who has been misled in the past. He might not have understood the importance of the object, believing it to be nothing more than a magical trinket. For a person like Hagrid, who had been so hurt by the loss of his magical abilities and ostracized for a crime he did not commit, this discovery would have been a simple reminder of the past, something to hold on to in the hope that it could bring some sort of closure or understanding. Number 17, Hagrid could communicate with all magical creatures. Rubeus Hagrid, the beloved keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, has always been a figure of intrigue for fans of the Harry Potter series. Known for his gentle, yet somewhat clumsy demeanour, Hagrid's unique connection with magical creatures has sparked countless discussions. Among the most fascinating fan theories is one that suggests Hagrid possesses a rare, almost supernatural ability to communicate with magical beings. While some of these creatures, like Buckbeak the Hippogriff, might seem approachable enough, others, such as dragons and even the terrifying three-headed dog Fluffy, are notorious for their aggression and ferocity. However, they all seem to be inexplicably drawn to Hagrid, often responding to him with a calmness that seems to defy their nature. The theory posits that Hagrid's extraordinary affinity with magical creatures is not mere coincidence, but rather the result of an inherent gift, something akin to the snake-speaking abilities of Parselmouths like Voldemort and Harry himself, but instead extending to all magical creatures. The notion that Hagrid has the ability to communicate with a vast array of magical beings rests on his uncanny bond with these creatures. This ability is not something that can be explained by mere observation or natural empathy. Throughout the series, Hagrid's interactions with magical creatures go beyond typical caretaker behavior. He doesn't just care for them, he understands them in a way that others simply cannot. His relationship with Buckbeak, a proud hippogriff, offers a clear example of this connection. When Harry and Draco encounter Buckbeak for the first time, it is clear that the creature is highly temperamental, requiring respect to avoid danger. But Hagrid, from the very beginning, seems to understand exactly how to approach Buckbeak, treating him with a reverence that ensures the creature doesn't attack. Hagrid's relationship with Buckbeak is less about training the animal and more about a deep, unspoken understanding. This connection is something fans have pointed to as evidence of Hagrid's special gift. Hagrid's bond with magical creatures like Buckbeak could be seen as an isolated case, but his ability to communicate with even the most dangerous creatures seems to suggest something more. One of the most telling instances is his interaction with Fluffy, the three-headed dog guarding the trapdoor to the Philosopher's Stone. Fluffy is not only a creature of immense size and strength, but also one of the most fearsome beasts in the wizarding world. Yet when Hagrid introduces Fluffy to Harry and Ron, the dog does not attack or even growl in anger. Instead, it reacts to Hagrid's commands and even seems to bond with him, lying down at his feet in a relaxed manner. This moment is pivotal in the theory because it highlights the unnatural calmness that the dog shows toward Hagrid. There is no logical explanation for this behavior other than a special connection, suggesting that Hagrid might indeed have an ability to communicate with magical creatures on a deeper level. Hagrid's connection with Fluffy is not a singular instance, but part of a broader pattern in his life. His interactions with other magical creatures, such as the giant spider Aragog, further reinforce the idea that he possesses a unique gift. Aragog, an enormous acromantula, is another creature that most wizards would avoid at all costs, let alone approach with any sense of comfort. Yet Hagrid is not only able to communicate with Aragog, but has also developed a long-standing friendship with the creature. This relationship is built on trust, and it is evident that Aragog respects Hagrid. When Harry and Ron are trapped in the spider's lair, Aragog refrains from attacking them, a rare mercy that only Hagrid seems to inspire. This moment is key to understanding the depth of Hagrid's gift. While other characters might view the spiders with fear or disdain, Hagrid's approach is based on understanding, a quality that seems to transcend normal wizarding interactions with magical creatures. The theory of Hagrid's unique gift also finds support in his relationship with other creatures that are known for their danger. For instance, Hagrid's care for dragons, particularly Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback, is another striking example of this connection. When Hagrid first acquires Norbert, the dragon is a dangerous and unpredictable creature. However, Hagrid seems to know exactly how to care for Norbert, and the dragon responds to him in a way that suggests they share a bond. Hagrid's ability to handle Norbert with such ease is not just the result of his knowledge of magical creatures, but also something deeper, a connection that goes beyond the realm of ordinary care. The way Hagrid nurtures Norbert, even secretly smuggling him out of Hogwarts, shows that his relationship with magical creatures often involves a level of empathy and understanding that others, even the most experienced magical beings, struggle to achieve. Another aspect of this theory is Hagrid's relationship with the giant Grawp, his half-brother. When Hagrid brings Grawp to Hogwarts, the creature is hostile, unrefined, and difficult to manage. However, Hagrid's bond with him grows over time, and he eventually succeeds in teaching Grawp how to behave, showing a level of patience and understanding that seems to come naturally to him. Grawp, like many of the other creatures Hagrid interacts, is aggressive and hard to control, but Hagrid manages to form a connection with him that few others would even attempt. This dynamic between Hagrid and Grawp further supports the theory that Hagrid's gift is not merely one of empathy, but one of communication. While other characters may care for magical creatures, Hagrid seems to speak to them in a way that makes them understand his intentions and form a bond with him. Number 18. Hagrid knew where a Horcrux was but stayed silent. In the labyrinthine world of Harry Potter, many mysteries remain hidden in plain sight, unnoticed by the characters who are often too preoccupied with their immediate concerns. One such mystery is the curious case of Hagrid and his possible knowledge of the Horcruxes long before the trio set out on their dangerous hunt. Hagrid, the lovable half-giant who served as Harry's first mentor, has always been a somewhat enigmatic figure. His deep connection with both the magical and non-magical worlds, as well as his role in the Order of the Phoenix, places him in a unique position to have observed things that others might have missed. Among these potential discoveries is the theory that Hagrid might have known about the existence of one of Voldemort's Horcruxes, specifically Salazar Slytherin's locket, yet chose to remain silent about it. During the early years of the war against Voldemort, Hagrid was a frequent visitor to the Black family home, which was being used as the Order of the Phoenix's headquarters. The house was steeped in dark history, not only due to its connection to the Black family, known for their strong ties to the dark arts, but also because it was home to numerous dangerous artifacts. Among these artifacts was the infamous Slytherin locket, a powerful magical object that had once belonged to the founder of Slytherin House and was later turned into one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. While Hagrid's visits were often tied to order business, one can imagine that he may have noticed the peculiar aura surrounding certain objects in the house, perhaps including the locket itself. Although Hagrid was not an expert in the dark arts, his deep love for magical creatures and his keen instincts for danger could have led him to sense that something was off about the locket. It is important to understand that Hagrid's relationship with the Black family, particularly Sirius Black, would have made him a regular fixture in the household during the time that Regulus Black was still alive. Regulus, the younger Black brother, had once served Voldemort, but he later had a dramatic change of heart and sought to destroy the locket. Understanding its dark nature, it is not far-fetched to assume that Hagrid, during his many visits to the Black House, may have encountered Regulus or at least heard the stories surrounding the locket's mysterious powers. Regulus' attempts to destroy the Horcrux, ultimately leading to his tragic death, were shrouded in secrecy. The Black House, as a location of such significance, might have been the very place where Hagrid could have learned more about the locket's dangerous history, particularly if he had come into contact with objects tied to the Dark Lord. However, Hagrid's knowledge of the locket does not stop at mere proximity. There is a theory that Hagrid, although aware of the potential dark magic surrounding certain objects, chose not to share this knowledge. His loyalty to Dumbledore and the Order, as well as his understanding of the dangers of meddling with things beyond his expertise, might have led him to keep silent. Hagrid, despite his immense strength and loyalty, was never one to assume a role he was ill-suited for. His lack of proficiency in the dark arts meant that he might have simply trusted Dumbledore's judgment and refrained from speaking out, knowing that the headmaster had his reasons for keeping certain matters secret. The question arises, why would Hagrid remain silent about the locket if he had even the faintest inkling of its significance? One possibility lies in his unwavering trust in Dumbledore. Hagrid's loyalty to the headmaster was, without a doubt, one of his defining characteristics. Even when Dumbledore's plan seemed questionable, Hagrid stood by him without question. It's not hard to imagine Hagrid, upon sensing something amiss in the Black family house, choosing to withhold his suspicions, trusting that Dumbledore had a plan for dealing with whatever dark magic was at play. Hagrid's natural inclination was to protect Harry and his friends, but he also understood that sometimes ignorance was a form of protection in itself. The idea that Dumbledore might have deliberately kept information about the Horcruxes from others, including Hagrid, is a plausible one. Dumbledore was a master manipulator of information, always balancing what others needed to know with the need to keep certain secrets safe from Voldemort's spies. Moreover, the theory suggests that Hagrid's silence was not necessarily out of ignorance or indifference. On the contrary, it might have been a calculated decision. In a world where information is often weaponized, Hagrid may have known that speaking about the locket could have put the entire Order in jeopardy. The knowledge of the Horcruxes was not something to be taken lightly. Voldemort had gone to great lengths to hide the true nature of his dark magic, and revealing such information could have led to disastrous consequences. Hagrid, though not always tactful, understood the value of keeping certain truths hidden for the greater good. His quiet observation of the locket, coupled with his respect for Dumbledore's strategy, would explain why he never raised the alarm. Additionally, Hagrid's interactions with other members of the Order of the Phoenix, particularly Sirius Black, and later Harry, may have played a role in his silence. Hagrid was deeply protective of those he cared for, and sharing such dangerous knowledge could have unnecessarily burdened those already fighting in the war. It's possible that Hagrid, recognizing the risks involved in pursuing the Horcruxes, decided that it was not his place to draw attention to the locket or its significance. After all, the hunt for the Horcruxes was something that Harry, Ron, and Hermione would undertake on their own, and Hagrid knew that their involvement was crucial to the success of the mission. By remaining silent, Hagrid allowed them to follow their own path, one that would ultimately lead them to the discovery of the Horcruxes. Hagrid's silence, therefore, becomes a reflection of his character and his deep understanding of the complexities of the war. He was not simply a bystander in the fight against Voldemort. Rather, he was a figure who recognized that the battle was larger than any one person or piece of information. By withholding his knowledge of the locket, Hagrid may have been ensuring that the trio could focus on their quest without being overwhelmed by the sheer weight of the task ahead. His silence, far from being a mere oversight, could be interpreted as an act of subtle guidance, one that protected the young heroes and allowed them to grow into the individuals they needed to be to defeat Voldemort. The theory that Hagrid knew about the Horcruxes but chose to remain silent is a compelling one, offering a new layer of complexity to his character. It highlights Hagrid's quiet wisdom and his ability to navigate the dangers of the wizarding world with a delicate balance of loyalty, trust, and caution. Though not always in the spotlight, Hagrid played a crucial role in the events of the Second Wizarding War. His actions, both seen and unseen, were instrumental in the success of the fight against Voldemort. In this light, the idea that Hagrid might have known about the Slytherin locket and kept that knowledge to himself only serves to further enhance his legacy as a protector of those he loved and a true hero in his own right. Number 19. Hagrid's umbrella is an ancient artifact. Hagrid's umbrella, a seemingly innocuous accessory, has sparked much speculation among fans of the Harry Potter series. For most of the books, it is a common sight in Hagrid's hands, an object that seems more like an everyday convenience than anything of great significance. However, as readers have delved deeper into the series, many have begun to ask, what if Hagrid's umbrella is more than it appears? What if, in fact, it is an ancient and powerful magical artifact. This theory, though not officially confirmed in the series, provides a fascinating lens through which to explore Hagrid's character and his role in the wizarding world. The story of Hagrid's umbrella begins with his expulsion from Hogwarts. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, it is revealed that Hagrid was expelled from school during his 3rd year for allegedly opening the Chamber of Secrets. However, as the series unfolds, we learn that the creature he was accused of releasing was not responsible for the attacks and that Hagrid was framed. Still, he was expelled, and his wand was broken in the process. The breakage of Hagrid's wand becomes a pivotal moment in his life, as it marks his transition from a student with magical potential to a person with limited magical abilities. Despite his expulsion and the destruction of his wand, Hagrid continues to wield magic throughout the series. The question arises, how does he manage to perform spells, particularly when he is without a wand or with a wand that is broken and hidden within an umbrella? In the eyes of many fans, this has always seemed like a curious loophole. If Hagrid's wand was indeed destroyed, how is he able to cast spells at all? The answer may lie in the possibility that the umbrella he carries is not merely a simple rain shield, but an ancient and enchanted artifact that allows him to perform magic even without a functional wand. One theory posits that the umbrella is not a random object at all, but a carefully chosen magical tool. Dumbledore, ever the strategist, may have given Hagrid the umbrella not just as a cover for his broken wand, but as an artifact of great power, one that could amplify Hagrid's magical abilities. This theory suggests that the umbrella is a relic of the past, imbued with magic that enhances the strength of its wielder. Perhaps it was created by a long-forgotten wizard or magical inventor, someone whose name has been lost to history. Such artifacts were not uncommon in the wizarding world, where powerful relics are often hidden in plain sight, their true purpose known only to those who have the wisdom to recognize their significance. The umbrella's role in Hagrid's magical capabilities is especially intriguing when considering his background. Hagrid is a half-giant, a member of a group of people who are often marginalized and underestimated in the wizarding world. As a half-giant, Hagrid faces prejudice from others, and his magical abilities are often scrutinized. However, Hagrid has always had a deep connection to magic, especially in relation to magical creatures. His understanding of the natural world and his ability to communicate with creatures like dragons and hippogriffs showcases his unique magical affinity. The umbrella could then be seen as a means for Dumbledore to help Hagrid access and refine his magical potential, allowing him to be more effective as a keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts. The theory also suggests that Dumbledore's decision to give Hagrid the umbrella was not just about helping him perform magic, but also about ensuring his safety. Hagrid's expulsion from Hogwarts was a direct result of the mishandling of a magical creature, and Dumbledore may have recognized the need to give Hagrid a tool that could protect him in case of future mishaps. The umbrella could therefore serve as a safeguard, allowing Hagrid to defend himself and others should the need arise. Interestingly, we see a similar pattern in the way that Dumbledore equips other characters with objects of magical significance. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, for example, Dumbledore gives Harry the pensieve, a device that allows Harry to view and experience memories. Dumbledore also provides Harry with the Sword of Gryffindor, a weapon that is imbued with magical properties. These objects, like Hagrid's umbrella, are not just practical tools, but also powerful artifacts that serve to guide and protect their owners. Dumbledore's understanding of the potential of these items is part of his genius, and it is not out of character for him to have given Hagrid an artifact that would allow him to continue performing magic, despite his broken wand. The idea of the umbrella as a magical artifact is further supported by the fact that Hagrid is able to use it to perform spells that are not easily explained. For example, in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Hagrid uses the umbrella to perform a spell that causes an object to fly into his hand. While this may seem like a simple feat of magic, it is important to remember that Hagrid is not using a regular wand. The fact that he is able to perform the spell at all, even with a broken wand hidden inside the umbrella, suggests that the umbrella itself may be enchanted in such a way that it compensates for the loss of his original wand. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the umbrella's magical properties is the fact that it is never fully explained in the books. The umbrella is always treated as an ordinary object by most characters, yet it remains a point of curiosity for fans. Its inconspicuous nature is part of its charm. It is a simple object that holds a great secret. If the umbrella was simply a disguise for Hagrid's broken wand, it would make sense that it would eventually be revealed as such. However, the fact that it remains a mystery throughout the series adds to the intrigue, suggesting that there is more to the umbrella than meets the eye. The theory also draws upon the idea that magical objects often have hidden properties that are not immediately apparent. In the wizarding world, objects like the Marauder's Map or the Room of Requirement are full of secrets, revealing their true nature only to those who are worthy of understanding them. In much the same way, Hagrid's umbrella could be an object that reveals its true potential only to someone like Hagrid, who possesses a deep and innate connection to magic. Throughout the series, Hagrid's relationship with magic is portrayed as complex and nuanced. On the one hand, he is a powerful figure who is able to perform impressive feats of magic. On the other hand, he is constantly battling the limitations of his broken wand and the prejudices of those around him. The umbrella, in this context, serves as a symbol of both Hagrid's strength and his vulnerability. It is a tool that allows him to overcome his limitations and continue to do the work he loves, whether that be caring for magical creatures or supporting Harry and his friends. It is also a reminder that magic is not always about the wand. It is about the heart, the will, and the connection to the world around us. In the end, the umbrella may not be the most obvious of magical artifacts, but its significance cannot be overlooked. Whether it is a relic from a bygone era or a simple tool to help Hagrid fulfill his duties, it remains a testament to the complexity of magic and the power of the objects that shape the lives of witches and wizards. The mystery of Hagrid's umbrella adds an extra layer of depth to his character and to the world of Harry Potter, reminding us that even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary power. Number 20, Hagrid and his father were outcasts. Hagrid, the half-giant gamekeeper of Hogwarts, is one of the most beloved characters in the Harry Potter series. With his warm heart, rugged demeanor, and affinity for magical creatures, he stands as a figure of kindness and loyalty. However, there is a fan theory that delves deeper into Hagrid's past, proposing that his seemingly simple life is the result of a much more complicated and tragic history. According to this theory, Hagrid and his father were outcasts, ostracized from the wizarding world, not just because of Hagrid's giant blood, but also due to some ancient conflict and guilt tied to his family's past. The theory suggests that Hagrid's father, a giant of a man who raised him alone after Hagrid's mother left, was not merely a widower. In fact, it proposes that Hagrid's family had been cast out of wizarding society long before Hagrid was even born. His father's fate was intertwined with a significant event in the magical world, one that caused them to be shunned by many, including the Ministry of Magic. To understand this, we need to look at the context of their life and Hagrid's behavior throughout the series. Hagrid's profession, caring for dangerous creatures, immediately sets him apart from the rest of the wizarding world. His position as the keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, while highly respected by those who know him, has little prestige in the eyes of the larger wizarding community. He is often seen as an outsider, both because of his heritage and his unconventional job. Despite his kind nature, his giant blood makes him an object of suspicion. This alienation is hinted at multiple times in the books, with people like Draco Malfoy referring to him as a half-giant with a tone of disdain. But there is more to this than just Hagrid's appearance. There's a deeper history at play. The theory suggests that the reason Hagrid's father was alone to raise him wasn't simply a case of abandonment, but rather a deliberate separation from the magical world. The wizarding community's disdain for half-bloods, as demonstrated by characters like Tom Riddle and even the Malfoys, was likely extended to Hagrid's family. His father, once a part of the wizarding world, might have been involved in the ancient conflict between the Ministry of Magic and those who advocated for the protection of magical creatures. This tension goes back many centuries, even before the rise of Voldemort. The Ministry of Magic, with its rigid and bureaucratic nature, has long viewed magical creatures as threats. However, there have always been a few brave wizards and witches who sought to defend these creatures from exploitation and mistreatment. Hagrid's father, who was likely one of these defenders, would have been seen as a radical by the Ministry. He might have fought for the rights of magical creatures such as dragons, hippogriffs, and giants, all of whom were often persecuted or confined by the Ministry's policies. Hagrid's loyalty to Dumbledore later in life, as well as his tendency to harbour and protect creatures that others fear, could be attributed to his father's influence. These ideals were passed down to Hagrid, who became an advocate for magical creatures despite the fact that many in the wizarding world saw him as eccentric or even dangerous. This is a stark contrast to the elite circles of the magical world, where blood purity and wizarding prowess often defined one's social standing. The fan theory proposes that Hagrid's father was either directly involved in a major event in magical history, perhaps even an act of rebellion against the Ministry, or that he was associated with an underground group that sought to protect magical creatures. This would explain the family's exile from the wizarding community. The fact that Hagrid's mother left them only adds to the mystery. Perhaps she was unwilling to continue living as an outcast, or maybe she was deeply involved in the conflict and had to escape the consequences. This backstory would shed light on why Hagrid, as an adult, is so protective of magical creatures, as well as why he is so loyal to Dumbledore, who is one of the few in the wizarding world who does not judge him for his background. Hagrid's life as an outsider is not just a result of his giant blood, but also the legacy of his father's rebellion. The magical world, with its elitist attitudes and strict rules, is not one that easily accepts those who defy authority. Hagrid's strong sense of loyalty to Dumbledore can be seen as a reflection of the deep bond between them. Dumbledore, who valued the lives of magical creatures and the importance of protecting them, would have been one of the few figures in the wizarding world who did not look down upon Hagrid for his family's past. In fact, Dumbledore's support might have been a lifeline for Hagrid, who could have easily become bitter or resentful of the society that had cast him aside. The theory also explains Hagrid's somewhat solitary lifestyle. Despite his warm personality, Hagrid lives on the fringes of the magical world in the woods near Hogwarts, far from the grandeur of the wizarding community in places like Diagon Alley or the Ministry. His home, the hut on the edge of the Forbidden Forest, serves as a symbol of his alienation. He is both physically and metaphorically on the outskirts, living with his beloved creatures and seeking solace in the natural world. His bond with animals, particularly those that others fear or shun, mirrors his own sense of being an outsider. It is also worth noting how this theory resonates with the themes of prejudice and societal exclusion present throughout the Harry Potter series. Much like Hagrid's experiences with discrimination due to his giant blood, many characters in the books face prejudice. From the mistreatment of Muggleborns to the harsh judgment of werewolves and other magical creatures, J.K. Rowling's world is one in which outsiders are frequently marginalized. Hagrid's story mirrors this larger theme, providing a poignant commentary on how society treats those who are different, whether by blood, by beliefs, or by heritage. His character is one of great personal strength and resilience, not just because of the challenges he faces, but because of the way he rises above them, choosing to protect the creatures others fear instead of retreating into bitterness. In addition, Hagrid's deep connection to Hogwarts itself can be seen as a consequence of this exile. Hogwarts, a school where students are taught to appreciate and defend magical creatures, represents a place where Hagrid finally finds a sense of belonging. Despite being considered other by much of the wizarding world, Hogwarts becomes his sanctuary, a place where his love for magical creatures is accepted and even celebrated. It is here that he finally finds a home, not just as the keeper of keys and grounds, but as someone who has found acceptance among those who truly understand him. This theory also provides insight into Hagrid's immense loyalty to his friends, particularly Harry Potter. Hagrid's dedication to Harry, from the moment he first meets him, can be seen as an extension of his own need for connection. Harry, like Hagrid, is an outsider in many ways. He is orphaned, mistreated by the Dursleys, and unaware of his true heritage until he learns he is a wizard. Hagrid sees in Harry not just a student to be mentored, but a kindred spirit, someone who, like him, is navigating a world that is often hostile and unwelcoming. The theory that Hagrid and his father were once exiles in the wizarding world provides a richer and more complex understanding of Hagrid's character. It explains his role as an outcast, his loyalty to Dumbledore, and his deep love for magical creatures. Hagrid's life is not just defined by his giant blood, but also by the legacy of his father's involvement in an ancient conflict, and the subsequent shunning of their family by the wizarding community. This theory enriches Hagrid's backstory and helps explain why he is such a unique and beloved character in the Harry Potter universe. Number 21. Hagrid was secretly in love with McGonagall. The idea of Rubeus Hagrid, the beloved half-giant gamekeeper of Hogwarts, having unspoken feelings for Minerva McGonagall is at first unexpected. Hagrid, with his rough exterior, his warm heart, and his undying loyalty to Harry Potter and the school, seems to belong to a different emotional world altogether from the stern and dignified Professor McGonagall. They are, in many ways, opposites. One is all gruff affection, and the other cool authority. Yet, there is something about the dynamic between them that invites speculation, particularly among the Harry Potter fanbase, who have often examined every interaction and small detail for hidden meanings. A theory has emerged suggesting that Hagrid might have harboured a quiet, unrequited love for McGonagall over the years, a love that was never voiced but silently shaped his actions and feelings toward her. To begin with, we can examine the way Hagrid has always regarded McGonagall. Throughout the series, he exhibits a deep respect for her. When speaking about her, Hagrid is often deferential, acknowledging her wisdom, strength, and her ability to command respect without ever seeming overbearing. This is evident during their interactions, as Hagrid frequently looks to McGonagall for guidance. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, when they are planning the defense against the invasion of Fluffy, Hagrid's words are laced with an almost protective respect when it comes to her position as deputy headmistress. The fact that he relies so heavily on her and seeks her opinion without hesitation or complaint speaks volumes about the depth of admiration he holds for her. Hagrid's deference to McGonagall goes beyond simple respect for authority. It suggests a kind of admiration that is more personal than professional. But it is not just admiration. There is also an emotional subtext to Hagrid's interactions with McGonagall. His actions toward her often carry a nuance that goes beyond mere colleague-to-colleague respect. One of the most telling moments is in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, when Hagrid nervously interacts with Madame Olympe Maxime. His awkwardness is almost palpable. His shyness as he fumbles with words around her is striking, and his obvious discomfort is noticeable. In that scene, Hagrid shows a vulnerability that isn't typically associated with him. It could be easy to dismiss this as simply his natural shyness, but it's worth noting that this is a pattern in his interactions with women. Hagrid's difficulty with expressing his emotions and his subsequent withdrawal could suggest a history of deep feelings for someone that were never voiced or reciprocated. In contrast, his relationship with McGonagall, while not overtly romantic, carries a similar awkwardness, albeit one that is far more subtle. There are instances when Hagrid's respect and admiration for McGonagall seem to push the boundaries of simple collegiality. For example, when McGonagall scolds him for breaking school rules, Hagrid doesn't react with anger or bitterness, as one might expect from someone used to authority. Instead, he often looks to her with a kind of fondness that borders on reverence. His behavior in these moments indicates a deep emotional attachment, even if he never fully articulates it. Hagrid's tendency to defer to McGonagall, his visible discomfort when around her, and his need for her approval suggest that his feelings for her might have been more than just platonic. Additionally, the way Hagrid speaks about McGonagall in private moments with other characters provides further insight into his feelings. For example, in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, when the trio is trying to gather information on the Marauders and the events surrounding the escape of Sirius Black, Hagrid is more than willing to engage with the students on a personal level, sharing more than he would typically reveal to others. Yet when he talks about McGonagall, it's evident that he holds back, exercising restraint. In these moments, Hagrid's affection for McGonagall becomes clear. He is protective of her, careful not to reveal too much, as though he is guarding a secret that he has kept hidden for a long time. This subtle behavior, when viewed through the lens of unspoken love, gives the impression that Hagrid sees McGonagall as someone precious, whose feelings and emotions are not to be casually shared. It is also significant that Hagrid never speaks disparagingly of McGonagall. Throughout the series, he demonstrates a strong protective instinct toward his friends and those he cares about. Yet, unlike his relationship with some other colleagues or students, where he may sometimes express frustration or annoyance, Hagrid never criticizes McGonagall. Instead, his interactions with her are characterized by a deep respect, even when they disagree. This suggests that his feelings toward her are not based on simple friendship or camaraderie, but something deeper, something more complex. Even in moments of tension, like when Hagrid and McGonagall are forced to work together in the face of Voldemort's return in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Hagrid's reactions are telling. Despite their differing views on how to handle certain situations, there is an underlying mutual understanding between them. It's in these moments that the potential for a deeper emotional connection becomes clear. When McGonagall expresses concern for the safety of Hogwarts, Hagrid is quick to agree with her, even if his manner of expressing it is more emotional and less controlled. This shared sense of duty and care for Hogwarts, while outwardly professional, carries with it an emotional depth that suggests something more. For Hagrid, McGonagall is more than a colleague. She is someone he holds dear, someone whose opinion and well-being mean more to him than he ever lets on. It's also worth noting that Hagrid's relationships with other women throughout the series, most notably Madame Maxime, are treated with a similar level of emotional distance. While he clearly has affection for Madame Maxime, his awkwardness and inability to fully express himself suggest that these feelings might be rooted in past experiences of unrequited love or emotional longing. Hagrid's lifelong history of hidden emotions may have influenced how he behaved around McGonagall. His affection for her, while unspoken, was perhaps a continuation of this pattern. What makes the theory that Hagrid could have loved McGonagall so compelling is the fact that it fits within the framework of his character. Hagrid is a man of great heart, someone who is immensely loyal and kind, yet deeply insecure about his own emotions. His tendency to care deeply for those around him, yet fail to express those feelings, suggests that a relationship with McGonagall could have been one that was silently nurtured in his heart over the years. It is possible that Hagrid never found the courage to express his feelings to McGonagall, not because he did not love her, but because he feared rejection or because he felt that their professional relationship would make such an admission inappropriate. In the end, it is likely that Hagrid's love for McGonagall remained a quiet, unspoken truth, never fully realized but always present in his heart. Ultimately, this theory about Hagrid's feelings for McGonagall is one that adds depth to his character and offers a new way of viewing his relationships with those around him. While it is clear that Hagrid had a complicated emotional life, it is also clear that his affection for McGonagall was, at least in part, shaped by a deep admiration and possibly even love. The quiet tenderness in his gaze when he looks at her, the respect in his voice when he speaks to her, and the subtle emotional distance he maintains, all of these factors point to a love that was never spoken but always felt. Number 22. Hagrid is the last of a magical line, lost after the war. In the magical world of Harry Potter, countless ancient and prestigious wizarding families have come and gone, with many disappearing after the First Wizarding War. One particularly intriguing fan theory posits that Rubeus Hagrid, the beloved keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, is the last living member of one such family, a long-forgotten magical lineage that perished in the aftermath of the war. This theory suggests that Hagrid's lineage might be tied to an ancient family with a deep connection to magical creatures, a family whose existence was erased from history after the horrors of the war. The magical world is no stranger to family bloodlines that stretch back centuries. The Weasleys, the Malfoys, the Blacks. These families are steeped in history, their names known to every witch and wizard. However, there are others, more obscure families, whose legacies were tragically cut short. The theory surrounding Hagrid's ancestry proposes that he is a descendant of one of these forgotten families, potentially a family whose expertise and passion for magical creatures set them apart from the more prominent wizarding families. Hagrid's deep, almost obsessive love for magical creatures, whether it's the giant Acromantula, Aragog, or the hippogriff Buckbeak, is not merely a personal inclination, but perhaps a reflection of his bloodline's ancient connection to these creatures. In the wizarding world, the study and care of magical creatures are not widely appreciated, often seen as a niche interest reserved for those who are considered eccentric or outcast. However, for the family Hagrid may descend from, this was a noble and integral aspect of their magical legacy. When one considers Hagrid's upbringing, the idea of him being the last of an ancient family begins to take shape. Hagrid's tragic history is filled with loss and hardship. As a young boy, he was expelled from Hogwarts for the alleged use of dark magic, a punishment that was later revealed to be a grave misunderstanding caused by Tom Riddle's manipulations. The expulsion not only marked a turning point in Hagrid's life, but also signified the beginning of the unraveling of his family's history. While the details of his early life are largely unknown, It's conceivable that his family's name was erased from the annals of wizarding history, their legacy lost along with their bloodline. Hagrid, as the last known member, was left vulnerable, his destiny hanging in the balance. What is particularly interesting about this theory is the role Albus Dumbledore played in Hagrid's life. Dumbledore's protective nature toward Hagrid goes beyond mere friendship or affection for a fellow educator. It is easy to view Dumbledore's actions as those of a wise and kind-hearted mentor, but there may be a deeper, more historical reason for his unyielding defense of Hagrid. In the context of the theory, Dumbledore's insistence on keeping Hagrid close to Hogwarts may have stemmed from a sense of duty, an obligation to protect the last member of a noble, forgotten house. Dumbledore, ever the historian of the wizarding world, was well aware of the fragile nature of wizarding bloodlines, especially after the devastations of the First War. Many of the old families, particularly those who were neutral or opposed to Voldemort's rise, suffered greatly during this time. Entire families were wiped out in the conflict, their names fading into obscurity. For Dumbledore, Hagrid may have represented the last living link to one of these families, a family that had once contributed to the greater good of the wizarding world, but had been erased by the ravages of war. To protect Hagrid, then, was not just an act of kindness, it was a historical preservation, a way to ensure that the magic and knowledge of a once great family would not be lost forever. Another compelling piece of evidence in support of this theory is Hagrid's incomplete magical education. Hagrid was never able to complete his schooling at Hogwarts due to his expulsion, and as a result his magical skills were somewhat limited compared to those of other wizards and witches. This might be viewed as a sign of a lost legacy, an incomplete magical education passed down through generations, interrupted by the chaos of the war. While Hagrid is undoubtedly a skilled and powerful wizard, his abilities are often unconventional and rooted in his love for magical creatures, rather than the more traditional forms of wizardry. In many ways, this makes Hagrid a paradox. A giant among wizards, yet one whose magic is bound to the earth and creatures rather than spells and charms. Hagrid's mixed heritage, being half-giant, further complicates the narrative of his lineage. Giants, while formidable, are often viewed as outsiders in the wizarding world. They are not considered fully part of the magical community, and their presence is often met with suspicion and fear. This aspect of Hagrid's identity has always made him somewhat of an outcast, a figure of both strength and vulnerability. If Hagrid's ancestors were indeed a prominent family, it is possible that their downfall was tied to the complex dynamics between wizards and other magical beings, such as giants. This could explain why Hagrid, despite his noble blood, was forced into the shadows and given a position at Hogwarts that was, in many ways, a reflection of his outsider status. The theory also draws attention to Hagrid's occasional bouts of naivety, his tendency to trust others easily, and his sometimes reckless behavior. These traits, while endearing, also highlight his vulnerability. A man of such strength and yet so emotionally open might have been easily manipulated by those who sought to erase his family's history. His love for magical creatures, particularly those that others found dangerous or repulsive, could be seen as a coping mechanism for the loss of his heritage. It is as if, in his passion for caring for creatures, he is also attempting to reconnect with a lost past, one that is filled with untold stories and forgotten magic. The loss of his family's name and legacy might also explain why Hagrid's past is so shrouded in mystery. While other characters such as Harry, Ron, and Hermione have their family histories explored in detail throughout the series, Hagrid's background remains largely unexplored. The few glimpses we get into his past His connection with his father, his tragic expulsion from Hogwarts, his long-standing friendship with Dumbledore are tantalizing, but ultimately incomplete. Perhaps this is because Hagrid himself is unaware of the full scope of his heritage, the secrets of his family, and the magical world they inhabited remain locked away, lost to time and war. Furthermore, Dumbledore's protection of Hagrid can also be seen as part of a larger effort to preserve the values of the past. As the last representative of a forgotten family, Hagrid embodies the old ideals of wizarding society, ideals that have been largely displaced by the rise of Voldemort and his Death Eaters. In protecting Hagrid, Dumbledore may have been seeking to preserve the balance between the magical and non-magical worlds, a balance that had been threatened by the war. Hagrid's presence at Hogwarts, then, was not just a symbol of personal friendship, but a reflection of the ongoing battle to protect the values of the wizarding world from being consumed by darkness. The idea that Hagrid is the last of a long-lost magical family adds another layer of depth to his character, transforming him from a simple, kind-hearted giant into a figure of historical importance. He is not just a caretaker of magical creatures. He is the keeper of a forgotten legacy, one that may never be fully understood. In many ways, Hagrid's role at Hogwarts is emblematic of the broader struggle in the wizarding world, the fight to preserve the past while navigating the challenges of an ever-changing future. Hagrid, with his tender love for creatures, his loyalty to his friends, and his unwavering support of Hogwarts, is both a relic of a bygone era and a living testament to the resilience of magical heritage. Number 23. Hagrid secretly cared for orphans after the war. In the aftermath of Voldemort's first defeat, the magical world was left in ruins. Families had been shattered, parents had been lost, and children had been abandoned in the wake of the Dark Lord's reign of terror. The streets were full of grief, but amid this sorrow there were those who quietly took on the responsibility of caring for the most vulnerable. One of the most unlikely heroes in this period was Rubeus Hagrid, the keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, whose heart was as large as his towering frame. In the shadows of the battle, Hagrid was not just a loyal friend to Harry Potter, but also a silent protector for many other orphaned children. Fans of the Harry Potter series have long speculated that Hagrid, with his inherent kindness and gentle nature, became a guardian for some of the children whose parents had been victims of the war. While the Ministry of Magic was busy dealing with the immediate aftermath of the battle, Hagrid, ever the protector, took it upon himself to care for the children whose lives had been torn apart. In the deep recesses of the Forbidden Forest, hidden from the eyes of those still dealing with the chaos, Hagrid might have quietly given sanctuary to these vulnerable souls, offering them a home and a sense of security while the magical world was in disarray. Hagrid's love for children and creatures alike is evident from the very first book in the series. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Hagrid's immediate attachment to Harry when they first meet demonstrates his unshakable loyalty and protective nature. The kindness he showed Harry taking him into his care after the death of his parents is not an isolated instance. In fact, Hagrid's actions seem to go beyond mere kindness. He felt deeply for the loss of life during the war, and this sense of loss likely drove him to help those who were most in need. Imagine, for a moment, that in the dark days following Voldemort's defeat, Hagrid could not bear to see children abandoned by the devastation of war. After all, he was no stranger to loss himself. Having faced persecution for his giant blood and being dismissed from Hogwarts, he knew what it was like to be an outcast. This connection with the feeling of abandonment and loneliness might have ignited a deep need to offer shelter to those without family. The Forbidden Forest, with its towering trees and hidden paths, would have been the perfect secret haven for such children. Hagrid's hut, situated on the edge of the forest, would have provided a warm, safe place where children could find respite while the ministry worked to sort out the complicated mess of orphaned, magical children. Hagrid's relationship with magical creatures provides a compelling backdrop for his empathy toward children who were left to fend for themselves. He is known to have raised several creatures, from a three-headed dog to a dragon, often at great personal risk. This affinity for nurturing and caring for misunderstood creatures is mirrored in his treatment of people, particularly children who might be considered misfits in the world of wizardry. It's easy to imagine Hagrid taking in these orphaned children as he would one of his beloved magical creatures, giving them food, comfort, and a sense of belonging. One can also consider the example of Tom Riddle, a child whose future turned dark, as a warning of how fragile a young life can be when deprived of love and care. It is clear from the books that the lack of affection and attention in his formative years shaped him into the man he would become. Hagrid, being acutely aware of this, might have been motivated by the desire to prevent history from repeating itself, offering his care to these vulnerable children to ensure they did not become the next generation's Voldemort. The parallels between Riddle's tragic upbringing and the children left orphaned after the battle could have been a driving force in Hagrid's decision to act. The idea that Harry was not the first child to receive Hagrid's care is not far-fetched. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Hagrid mentions that he was tasked with bringing Harry to the Dursleys, following the orders of Dumbledore. Yet what if this act of kindness was not an isolated incident? What if, for years after the war, Hagrid continued to be a silent guardian, taking children under his wing, sheltering them in the one place he knew they could be safe? The children in the Forbidden Forest would have been his second family, a group of orphans who shared in the trauma and pain of losing everything. While Hagrid's hut may have been small, it was big enough for a heart as large as his. Hagrid's actions might have gone unnoticed by many, but there were those who would have surely noticed his constant, quiet presence. The students at Hogwarts who would have been growing up during this time might have seen his interaction with the children on the rare occasion that he returned to the school with an orphaned child in tow. It's plausible that the whispers among the students and staff of Hogwarts hinted at Hagrid's secret life. Perhaps Minerva McGonagall, who knew the importance of family, had a quiet understanding of what Hagrid was doing, though she never spoke of it. Hagrid's kindness extended beyond those he was obligated to protect. It reached into the very heart of the war's casualties, children whose fates were yet to be determined. It's also important to consider the nature of the magical world and how the Ministry of Magic, while essential in providing aid, was often slow and inefficient. The process of finding homes for orphaned magical children would have been a bureaucratic nightmare. In the wake of Voldemort's defeat, many children were left in limbo, unsure of where they would go or who would care for them. It's possible that the Ministry, overwhelmed by the chaos of the post-war world, might have overlooked the most vulnerable, leaving them to fend for themselves. Hagrid, with his deep sense of duty, would have seen this and acted without waiting for permission. His quiet, private actions could have been the very thing that saved countless children from being forgotten. The strength of Hagrid's character is that he was always there when it mattered most. He wasn't just a giant of a man in physical stature, he was also a giant in heart. His love for Harry, as he displayed when he introduced him to the wizarding world, is matched only by his devotion to doing what was right. In the books, Hagrid constantly places the needs of others before his own, even when it puts him at risk. For Hagrid, caring for those in need, especially children, was a natural extension of his personality. In many ways, Hagrid's devotion to helping orphan children after the war was not just a matter of kindness, it was a matter of healing. Hagrid understood, more than most, the trauma that children like Harry experienced, losing their families and homes. He had been abandoned as a child, and the scars from that abandonment ran deep. By offering these children a sanctuary, he was not just saving them from physical harm, but also providing them with the emotional support they needed to heal and grow. Hagrid's actions served as a quiet rebellion against the cruelty of the world, a stand for compassion in a time of widespread suffering. As the years passed and the world moved on, Hagrid's role in caring for orphan children would likely have faded into the background, unnoticed by the world at large. However, the impact of his actions would have rippled through the lives of those he helped. These children, many of whom would have been forgotten by history, were given a chance at a better life because of one man's unwavering sense of duty and love. Hagrid's secret legacy would live on, not in the grand battles or victories of the war, but in the quiet moments of care he provided for the most vulnerable. Ultimately, the theory that Hagrid secretly cared for orphan children after the war fits perfectly with the character's established traits. It adds a new layer of depth to his already complex personality, transforming him from a beloved giant to a quiet hero whose actions impacted the lives of many. Whether this theory is confirmed in the books or not, it remains a poignant possibility, one that paints Hagrid as not just a protector of Harry, but a protector of all those who were lost and vulnerable in the aftermath of war. Number 24. Hagrid knew the prophecy before Harry did. Hagrid, the beloved half-giant and keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, is often seen as a loyal and kind-hearted figure in the Harry Potter series. However, there is a fan theory that casts him in a different light, suggesting that Hagrid may have known about the prophecy concerning Harry and Voldemort long before Harry himself ever did. This theory posits that due to his close relationship with Dumbledore, Hagrid was aware of the prophecy's details and its eventual implications for Harry's fate. This knowledge would not only explain Hagrid's peculiar behavior in various situations throughout the series, but also his occasional silence regarding the dangers surrounding Harry. The theory also suggests that Hagrid's actions were influenced by the understanding that Harry's destiny was already sealed and nothing could change it. From the very first book, Hagrid's actions seem to carry an odd sense of foreknowledge, as if he were more aware of Harry's significance than he lets on. One such example comes early in the Philosopher's Stone, when Hagrid arrives at the hut to deliver Harry's Hogwarts letter. Harry's reaction to learning about his magical heritage is one of shock and confusion, but Hagrid's calmness in the face of Harry's astonishment suggests that he is not as surprised as one might expect. Hagrid knows exactly what is happening, and while he shows compassion, his demeanor conveys a deeper understanding. He doesn't hesitate in revealing Harry's past and the reason why he's been living with the Dursleys. Later in the story, when Harry enters the wizarding world for the first time, Hagrid shows him Diagon Alley, introduces him to the wonders of the magical community, and even takes him to Ollivander's to purchase his wand. But what is notable in this part of the narrative is that Hagrid never seems taken aback by the numerous extraordinary events happening around Harry. It's almost as though he's not surprised by Harry's reactions to everything magical because he already knew it was coming. This is especially evident when Harry is given the opportunity to see his wand, and Ollivander mentions that the wand is twin to Voldemort's, implying an important connection. Hagrid does not comment on this or seem startled by it, even though this would have been the first time Harry learns about the prophecy's potential impact on his life. However, it is in the later books, particularly The Chamber of Secrets, The Prisoner of Azkaban, and The Goblet of Fire, that Hagrid's behavior takes on a new layer of complexity. In these books, we witness moments where Hagrid's actions, or lack thereof, seem to hint at his deeper awareness of Harry's significance. For example, in The Chamber of Secrets, when Harry is almost killed in the second task of the Triwizard Tournament, Hagrid's reaction is interestingly restrained. He is concerned for Harry, of course, but there is no panic or desperation. Hagrid's calmness in these high-stakes situations could very well stem from his knowledge that Harry's fate is tied to a larger, inevitable battle. After all, Hagrid had been present during the night when Harry's parents were murdered, and he was well aware of the prophecy regarding the Chosen One. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, Hagrid reveals his unwavering loyalty to Dumbledore when he refuses to speak about certain matters, even when pressed by Harry. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione discover the truth about Sirius Black and the prophecy regarding Peter Pettigrew, Hagrid shows a surprising degree of restraint. He does not share his suspicions or offer any direct commentary on the situation. This, too, can be interpreted as Hagrid's silent acknowledgement that some things must play out as they are meant to. His understanding of the larger forces at play and the importance of keeping certain secrets suggests a knowledge of that is far beyond what Harry himself is aware of at that time. In fact, Hagrid's refusal to speak about the prophecy and the events surrounding Harry's parents can be viewed as a deliberate attempt to protect Harry from the overwhelming weight of his destiny. Hagrid's quiet silence during pivotal moments also speaks to his understanding of the prophecy's inescapability. While Dumbledore was famous for offering cryptic advice, Hagrid, in contrast, remained silent on key matters, even when it might have been beneficial for Harry to know the truth. Take, for instance, the moment when Harry is confronted with the discovery that he is a Horcrux in the Deathly Hallows. Hagrid's reaction is calm, and his silence in the face of Harry's mounting danger might be seen as his acknowledgement that this is the path Harry must walk. In fact, throughout the entire series, Hagrid serves as a subtle guide who knows more than he lets on. His understanding that certain events must occur to fulfill the prophecy is a testament to his loyalty to Dumbledore and the belief that there are some things that are not meant to be changed. What is perhaps most telling of Hagrid's foreknowledge is his reaction to Harry's increasing involvement in the fight against Voldemort. Throughout the books, Hagrid demonstrates a fierce protectiveness over Harry, and yet there are moments when he seems almost resigned to Harry's involvement in the fight. His behavior in The Goblet of Fire, when Harry's name is drawn from the Goblet of Fire, is a prime example. While he is undoubtedly concerned for Harry, there is no sign of surprise or disbelief. Hagrid has seen this before, and he knows that Harry is destined to face danger regardless of his wishes. This reaction can be interpreted as Hagrid's understanding of the prophecy, a belief that Harry must take on these challenges even if it means putting his life at risk. Additionally, Hagrid's role in the final battle, when he fights alongside Harry against the Death Eaters, further exemplifies his knowledge of the prophecy. Hagrid, despite his obvious physical prowess and loyalty, is not the hero who defeats Voldemort. Harry is. Yet Hagrid's presence in the final battle serves as a reminder that, while he might have known the prophecy's outcome, he was always there to guide and protect Harry in whatever way he could. He never tried to alter the course of events, instead standing by Harry, knowing that the outcome was out of his hands. It is also important to consider Dumbledore's influence on Hagrid's silence regarding the prophecy. Throughout the series, Dumbledore is portrayed as a figure who encourages Harry to make his own choices, despite knowing the final outcome. Dumbledore's guidance is subtle, often directing Harry toward critical moments in the story, but without explicitly revealing the future. In the same way, Hagrid's actions are shaped by his loyalty to Dumbledore, and his understanding of Harry's role in the grand scheme of things. By remaining silent and acting only when necessary, Hagrid helps to preserve the illusion of choice for Harry, allowing him to believe that his actions and decisions are his own, even if the ultimate outcome is already known. The fan theory that Hagrid knew the prophecy before Harry is a compelling one, offering a new perspective on his actions and motivations throughout the series. Hagrid's odd calmness in the face of danger, his silence on important matters, and his unwavering loyalty to Harry all point toward a deeper understanding of the forces at play in the wizarding world. By exploring this theory, we are reminded of the intricate web of destiny that binds the characters of the Harry Potter series together, and how even the most seemingly straightforward figures like Hagrid are shaped by the knowledge of their roles in the larger narrative. Number 25, Hagrid, was once on the brink of joining the dark side. Rubeus Hagrid, the beloved keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, is one of the most endearing and loyal characters in the Harry Potter series. His rough exterior, combined with his immense kindness and dedication to his friends, creates a persona that stands in stark contrast to the dark figures he once encountered. Yet, beneath his towering figure and kind demeanor, there lies a history of struggle and internal conflict. A compelling fan theory suggests that Hagrid, despite his inherent goodness, was once on the verge of turning toward the dark side, only to be saved by a combination of his own moral compass and the unwavering faith of Albus Dumbledore. This theory highlights an entirely different side of Hagrid, a side that was almost lost to the temptations of power, revenge, and loneliness. Hagrid's life has never been easy. From an early age, he was treated as an outcast by the wizarding community. As the son of a giantess, Hagrid was always different. His size and his heritage led to whispers and pointed fingers from others, making him feel like an outsider. As a young boy, he found solace in the magical world, where his innate love for creatures and nature set him apart from other students at Hogwarts. However, his story took a dark turn when, as a teenager, he was wrongfully blamed for the opening of the Chamber of Secrets. Hagrid was expelled from Hogwarts for a crime he did not commit, and instead of the wizarding world standing by him, he was left isolated, abandoned to the harsh whispers of society. Hagrid's deep resentment towards those who wronged him, combined with his isolation, made him vulnerable. When Lord Voldemort, the dark wizard who was rapidly rising to power, reached out to him, it's easy to imagine that Hagrid would have been in a place to listen. Voldemort, with his silver tongue and promises of power, was skilled in preying on the lonely and the hurt. For someone like Hagrid, who had suffered so much injustice, Voldemort's offer must have seemed tantalizing. Perhaps Voldemort tried to play on Hagrid's anger and his sense of betrayal, trying to convince him that the world owed him something for all the pain he had endured. After all, Voldemort knew how to manipulate emotions, and Hagrid's sense of alienation and bitterness could have been the perfect weakness to exploit. The theory suggests that Hagrid was offered a place by Voldemort's side, a position of power and respect, in a world where Hagrid had often been marginalized. The temptation of revenge, of finally showing the world that he was not the broken man they had made him out to be, would have been powerful. For someone with Hagrid's sense of injustice, the idea of turning the tables on those who had humiliated him could have been irresistible. However, it is important to note that Hagrid's core moral compass, though challenged, never faltered. It is clear from the books that Hagrid, despite his flaws, had a deep-seated love for the creatures he cared for and a profound sense of loyalty to those he loved. What saves Hagrid, according to this fan theory, is his relationship with Albus Dumbledore. Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts, was not just a mentor to Hagrid, but a true friend who understood Hagrid's pain and saw the goodness that resided within him. Dumbledore's belief in Hagrid, even when the wizarding world was quick to dismiss him, was unwavering. When Hagrid was expelled from Hogwarts, Dumbledore was the one who fought to have him reinstated, even though many considered Hagrid's expulsion to be a stain on the school's reputation. Dumbledore, always a figure of hope and redemption, did not see Hagrid as a failed student, but as someone who could overcome his past mistakes and contribute positively to the world. This belief in Hagrid's potential may have been the very thing that prevented him from falling into Voldemort's trap. At a time when Hagrid was at his most vulnerable, Dumbledore's guidance may have been the anchor that kept him grounded. Dumbledore's kindness and unwavering support gave Hagrid the strength to choose the right path, despite the seductive allure of vengeance and power. Hagrid may have been tempted, but it was Dumbledore's belief in him that allowed him to rise above the darkness. Moreover, Hagrid's character is defined by an inherent goodness that cannot be fully overshadowed by the anger and resentment he may have felt in the past. While Voldemort's promises of power may have played on Hagrid's wounds, they could never fully corrupt him. Hagrid's love for the magical creatures he cared for, his deep affection for his friends, and his unwavering loyalty to Harry Potter are all testaments to the core of who Hagrid is. These qualities are not mere traits, they are the foundation of his identity. Hagrid's ability to choose the light, even when it would have been easier to seek revenge, is a central part of his heroism. In many ways, Hagrid's story mirrors that of other characters in the series who face the temptation of darkness but ultimately choose the path of light. Much like Severus Snape, who is constantly torn between his loyalties to Dumbledore and his past with Voldemort, Hagrid is a character defined by internal struggle. However, unlike Snape, Hagrid's story is one of redemption, not born out of guilt, but out of a deep-seated desire to protect those he cares about. Hagrid is not driven by a need to atone for past wrongs, but by an intrinsic sense of right and wrong that transcends his painful past. A crucial aspect of Hagrid's character arc is the way in which he deals with the consequences of his choices. Unlike many other characters, Hagrid's personal growth is not a matter of discovering the right path, but of maintaining his course in the face of overwhelming pressure to deviate. In this sense, his story is one of resilience and strength. He chooses to forgive, to protect, and to love, even when the world around him seems intent on forcing him into isolation. Hagrid's choices, as outlined in this theory, are not born from ease or comfort, but from the painful realization that choosing the path of light is not always the easiest or most rewarding. The theory that Hagrid was once on the verge of turning to the dark side adds a layer of complexity to his character. Hagrid, often seen as the gentle giant who dotes on magical creatures, is more than just a soft-hearted character. He is a person who has faced profound injustice and alienation, someone who has been offered power and vengeance, and yet chose to rise above it. This makes Hagrid an even more heroic figure, not because he was immune to darkness, but because he chose to fight it. The very fact that he once stood at the crossroads of light and dark and chose the right path despite everything makes him a true symbol of strength and moral fortitude. In conclusion, Hagrid's story is one of redemption, of overcoming pain, and of choosing light in the face of overwhelming darkness. His internal conflict, as suggested by the fan theory, adds depth to his character and makes him one of the most compelling and heroic figures in the Harry Potter series. Hagrid's journey is not about avoiding the temptation of darkness, but about making the conscious decision to stand against it, even when it seems like the easier path. It is this decision, more than any other, that defines Hagrid as a true hero in the wizarding world. Number 26, Hagrid might have been a druid. Rubeus Hagrid, the lovable half-giant keeper of keys and grounds, at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, is one of the most beloved characters in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. Yet many fans have noticed something unique about his magical abilities, or rather, his lack of conventional wizarding skills. Unlike other wizards, Hagrid rarely uses spells in the traditional sense, relying instead on his innate connection to creatures, nature, and the elements. This peculiarity has led some fans to speculate that Hagrid might not just be a typical wizard, he could be a descendant of an ancient order of druids. Druids, in history and mythology, were mystics who communicated with nature and harnessed magical powers through their deep understanding of the world around them. Unlike wizards who wielded their power through wands and incantations, druids were believed to have access to a more primal, elemental form of magic, one that flowed through the earth, the trees, the skies, and the creatures that roamed the land. This idea of magic, raw and untamed, seems to align remarkably well with Hagrid's abilities and his unique way of interacting with the magical world. Throughout the Harry Potter series, Hagrid's magic stands out for its absence of formal structure. While other wizards like Hermione Granger and Harry Potter cast complex spells with precise wand movements and Latin incantations, Hagrid is often seen using his sheer physical presence and emotional connection to control magical creatures. Take, for example, his ability to care for and communicate with dangerous creatures such as Buckbeak the hippogriff, the Norwegian ridgeback dragon, or Aragog, the giant acromantula. He doesn't rely on spells to subdue these creatures. Instead, he uses his understanding of their needs, fears, and instincts to form a bond with them. One of the most striking examples of this is when Hagrid introduces Harry and Ron to the Forbidden Forest. As they venture deeper into the forest, it becomes clear that Hagrid is not simply a guide to these magical creatures, but a part of the forest itself. He speaks of the trees, the weather, and the animals with an intimate knowledge, as if he understands the forest's very soul. This connection to nature is a hallmark of druidic magic, which is often said to be rooted in a deep understanding of the natural world. Hagrid's bond with nature is not confined to the creatures he cares for. His reaction to the weather, particularly his sensitivity to changes in the wind, also hints at a deeper connection to the natural world. In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, when the wind shifts suddenly, Hagrid becomes visibly agitated, sensing that something is amiss. This response to the elements is reminiscent of druidic magic, which was often said to involve the manipulation of natural forces like the wind, the rain, and the earth. Another example of Hagrid's druidic-like magic occurs during his care for the giant squid in the Black Lake. While many wizards might dismiss such creatures as merely part of the magical ecosystem, Hagrid seems to possess a unique understanding of their behavior and needs. His ability to communicate with the giant squid, to care for it, and to keep it calm without resorting to magic in the traditional sense, such as using a wand, suggests a form of magic that is deeply rooted in empathy and the understanding of nature's rhythms. The way Hagrid interacts with the world around him is strikingly similar to how druids were believed to interact with the natural world. The druids, as ancient practitioners of nature-based magic, were often thought to wield their power through rituals that involved the elements: earth, water, fire, and air. They didn't need wands or spells. Their power came from a deep, intrinsic connection to the world. This idea is embodied in Hagrid's magic, which is primal, untamed, and perhaps even forgotten by the mainstream magical community. One of the most telling aspects of Hagrid's magical abilities is his lack of interest in formal education or traditional magical practices. While other students at Hogwarts, including Harry, Ron, and Hermione, are eager to master new spells and perfect their wand techniques, Hagrid shows little interest in these academic pursuits. Instead, he finds his strength in his connection to the creatures and the wild spaces around him. He teaches Harry and his friends not just about the magical creatures in the Forbidden Forest, but about how to respect them, how to understand their nature, and how to care for them. This is not the kind of magic that can be learned from a textbook or perfected through practice with a wand. It is a magic that comes from a place of deep, ancient wisdom. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Hagrid's magical abilities are tested when he is framed for opening the Chamber of Secrets and unleashing the basilisk. Despite the accusations, Hagrid does not resort to defensive magic, nor does he attempt to use spells to clear his name. Instead, he relies on his knowledge of creatures and his deep understanding of the world to guide his actions. When he is sent to Azkaban, it is not his mastery of spells that saves him, but his deep bond with nature and his unwavering trust in Harry and his friends. This highlights the idea that Hagrid's magic is not based on traditional wizardry, but rather on something older, more primal, and perhaps even more powerful. Hagrid's affinity for magical creatures also suggests a connection to ancient druidic practices. Druids were believed to have the ability to communicate with animals and the natural world in ways that other humans could not. Hagrid, with his deep understanding of magical creatures like the hippogriff and the dragon, seems to share this ability. While other wizards might view these creatures as dangerous or simply as magical entities to be controlled, Hagrid sees them as living beings with their own needs and desires. This approach to magic, one that emphasizes respect, empathy, and understanding, is much more in line with druidic traditions than with the formal magic taught at Hogwarts. Another intriguing aspect of Hagrid's character is his isolation from the wizarding community. He is often seen as an outsider, someone who doesn't quite fit in with the traditional norms of wizarding society. This sense of being different from the mainstream magical community could be indicative of his ancient druidic heritage. Druids, after all, were often seen as outsiders in their own societies, practitioners of a form of magic that was not fully understood or accepted by the general population. Hagrid, with his unconventional magic and his love for creatures and nature, fits this description perfectly. Throughout the series, Hagrid's magical abilities are often downplayed, and he is sometimes portrayed as a clumsy, bumbling figure. However, these moments of humor and self-deprecation only serve to highlight the complexity of his character. Beneath the jovial exterior, Hagrid is a powerful figure who embodies a form of magic that is ancient, primal, and connected to the natural world. His magic is not based on the formal spells and incantations taught at Hogwarts, but on his deep understanding of the creatures, the weather, and the earth itself. Hagrid's character represents a return to an older, forgotten form of magic, one that is rooted in the natural world and in the connection between all living things. This form of magic, which druids are often associated with, is powerful not because of its complexity, but because of its simplicity and its deep connection to the earth. Hagrid, with his love for nature and his ability to communicate with creatures, embodies this ancient magic in a way that no other character in the Harry Potter series does. Ultimately, while J.K. Rowling never explicitly states that Hagrid is a druid, the evidence within the books strongly suggests that he is a modern-day representation of this ancient magical tradition. His magic, grounded in the natural world and his connection to creatures and the elements, sets him apart from the traditional wizards of the magical community. In a world where magic is often seen as something to be controlled and manipulated, Hagrid stands as a reminder of a more ancient, organic magic, one that comes from the earth itself. Number 27, Hagrid died in an alternate ending. In the world of Harry Potter, certain characters become so beloved that their fates feel inextricably linked to the overall narrative, and one such character is Rubeus Hagrid. The loyal and gentle giant with his wild hair and booming laugh is a figure who stands out from the crowd. Throughout the series, Hagrid is a constant source of warmth and safety for Harry Potter, a protector and guide who offers friendship and support in the most difficult of times. However, an unsettling fan theory suggests that in an earlier draft of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, J.K. Rowling planned a much darker fate for Hagrid. According to this theory, Hagrid's life was supposed to end in the final book, a tragic death that would have brought even more emotional weight to the final battle between good and evil. The idea that Hagrid might have been intended to die in an alternative version of the story is grounded in the particular emotional tone of his scenes in the Deathly Hallows. One of the most memorable moments in the book occurs when Hagrid, believing Harry is dead, carries his seemingly lifeless body through the forest, a scene that many fans believe is laden with deep emotional resonance. The fan theory suggests that Rowling originally meant for Hagrid's role in this moment to be even more heartbreaking. Not only was Harry supposed to be dead, but Hagrid was meant to die alongside him. The scene where Hagrid is shown carrying Harry's body like a fragile, precious burden has always been one of the most poignant in the book. It's a moment where Hagrid's vulnerability shines through, offering a glimpse into his deep affection for Harry, a love so powerful that it might well have cost him his life. The theory gains traction when considering Hagrid's role in the series as a whole. From the very beginning of the saga, Hagrid is portrayed as a protector of Harry, the one who first introduces him to the magical world and has always been there when Harry needed him the most. This unwavering loyalty to Harry, combined with Hagrid's tragic past, having been unfairly expelled from Hogwarts and left to bear the weight of prejudice, makes his eventual death seem like a fittingly tragic end. After all, death is a recurring theme in the series, and many characters who are beloved by the readers are not immune to it. The most prominent of these deaths include Cedric Diggory, Sirius Black and Dumbledore, all of whom are deeply connected to Harry's journey. It could be argued that Hagrid's death would have added another layer of tragedy to Harry's story, underlining the sacrifices that were made in the fight against Voldemort and the ultimate cost of defeating darkness. Fans point to the moment when Harry is carried by Hagrid through the Forbidden Forest as evidence of this possible earlier plan. The raw emotion in this scene where Hagrid grieves the loss of Harry seems almost too intense for a simple farewell. The image of Hagrid, a giant of a man struggling with the loss of someone he has come to love as a son, is undeniably heart-wrenching. But the fan theory suggests that Rowling initially wanted the scene to be more than just a moment of mourning. It was supposed to be an ultimate sacrifice. Hagrid's attempt to protect Harry from Voldemort's forces by carrying his body to what would be Harry's final resting place would have made the scene all the more tragic. In this version of events, Hagrid would not only have been devastated by Harry's apparent death, but would have gone down in the most heroic way possible, offering a final act of defiance to Voldemort. This would have underscored the unrelenting bond between them and given Hagrid's character an immensely noble end. This potential narrative twist also ties into the broader themes of death and sacrifice that pervade the Harry Potter series. Death is a central concept throughout the books, and Rowling often explores the idea that it is not something to be feared, but something that is an inevitable part of life. Several characters, including Sirius, Dumbledore, and Fred Weasley, are taken too soon, leaving Harry and the readers with an overwhelming sense of loss. The death of Hagrid, with his enormous heart and pure intentions, would have been a deeply tragic moment that might have mirrored Harry's own eventual sacrifice. It's worth noting that Deathly Hallows is a book that constantly grapples with the inevitability of death. As Harry prepares to face Voldemort, he must accept the possibility of his own demise, and this theme of mortal sacrifice extends to his friends and mentors as well. Having Hagrid, one of the most enduring and loyal characters, meet his own end in such a moment of high emotional tension would have fit seamlessly into the narrative, further underlining the cost of the war against Voldemort. Another point that fuels the theory is the fact that the original draft of Deathly Hallows was quite different from the final published version. In earlier drafts, it is rumoured that many significant changes were made, including the fates of certain characters. Rowling herself has mentioned that she made several alterations to the plot before the book was finalised, and the scene where Hagrid carries Harry's body is one of the most notable examples of this. According to fans, Hagrid's emotional moment was not merely meant to be an expression of grief, but a dramatic turning point in the story, a farewell to both Harry and the readers. It is easy to imagine that in an earlier version, this scene could have been intended as Hagrid's final act of love for Harry. The raw emotion in this moment, where Hagrid is willing to risk his own life to ensure that Harry is properly laid to rest, could have been even more poignant had Hagrid died in the process. After all, Hagrid had already lost so much over the years: his beloved dragon, his role as a teacher, and his ability to fully belong in the wizarding world. In this context, his death could have been the ultimate sacrifice. When considering this theory, one must also look at Hagrid's symbolic role within the series. He represents the magical world's connection to nature and the wild, embodying an innocence and honesty that is rare among the more polished characters. His death could have been seen as the closing of a chapter, symbolizing the loss of the old ways of magic, of the innocence that was lost as the wizarding world descended into conflict. If Rowling had allowed Hagrid to die in Deathly Hallows, it would have marked the death of one of the last characters who could be seen as a protector of Harry's childhood. Hagrid was the one who introduced Harry to the magical world in the Philosopher's Stone, and the idea that he might have died in Harry's final battle would have created a heartbreaking narrative symmetry. The idea that Hagrid's death was planned as part of an earlier version of Deathly Hallows also adds weight to the theory of the book's darker tone. While the final version of the book is undoubtedly filled with hope and resolution, it is also filled with loss and pain. The death of Hagrid would have compounded this sense of sorrow, offering a powerful reminder of the sacrifices made by the characters who fought against Voldemort. Fans argue that this would have added emotional depth to the series, bringing it full circle and giving Hagrid the ultimate heroic end that his character deserves. Although Rowling ultimately chose to spare Hagrid, the lingering sadness in the scenes surrounding his character, particularly his tender handling of Harry's seemingly lifeless body, suggests that the idea of his death was a strong part of the original vision for the book. In the end, the fan theory surrounding Hagrid's death in an alternative version of Deathly Hallows invites readers to consider the many layers of grief, sacrifice, and love that permeate the series. Hagrid's potential death would have added to the heartbreak of the book, underscoring the harsh realities of war and the devastating impact of Voldemort's reign. While Rowling ultimately chose not to go down that path, the emotional weight of Hagrid's scenes remains a testament to the enduring affection that fans have for this beloved character.